We're dreaming in the dark. We are nothing more than dust. Search but you stay lost. We are.
Hey, welcome back to True Crime Unraveled. I'm your host, Robert. And everyone who's come to my channel, and a majority of my subscribers know that I'm not a big fan of Dylan. I haven't been a big fan of hers since the appearance in the probable cause affidavit, or the probable crap affidavit is what I call it sometimes. Uh, with her generic statements and generic description, with her waiting 8 hours to call 911 and quote unquote frozen shock phase. It's just some of her statements are very moronic. Um, and thanks to Ann Taylor, some of her statements that were omitted from the PCA, which yeah, I do believe, yeah, even with those statements in the PCA, they would still figure a way to come up with probable cause in this case. It didn't matter if they left the statements in or out. They were still going to come up with probable cause. Well, just like a statement. Again, I was also very drunk. I don't know how much of this is real. Like, I don't know if my mind was like doing whatever. I don't know any of it. Like, half this stuff, I don't know if it's a dream or if it's real. I just have no clue. And she also said that her memory was fuzzy and cloudy. She could not differentiate if anything is real or if anything is a dream. The information was not included in the Exhibit A. According to defendant, this information was crucial to allow the magistrate to properly evaluate DM's reliability, and its omission was material and exculpatory. The law does not favor defendant on this argument. Probable cause is determined by examining the total of the circumstances and making practical common sense decision whether giving all the circumstances set forth in the affidavit before the court, including the veracity and basis of knowledge and persons supplying hearsay information. This is a fair probability that contraband or evidence of a crime will be found in a particular place. Okay, I'm sorry. I do not believe anything that's coming out of Dylan's mouth, especially when she states later on in the Frank's document that he was white. I didn't know how he was white, but I knew he was white. What kind of statement is that? Like, seriously. I have no clue from what I remember. I just remember seeing this figure that was more of like the skinnier tone build and some mask on. I don't know if it was covering his mouth, his nose, or below his mouth and nose. I just remembered he was white, but I didn't know how he was white. I just knew he was, and I knew he looked at me because of the bushy eyebrows. Well, see, that's a direct contradiction to the statement in the PCA that, she described a man clad in black, 5'10" or taller, athletically built, bushy eyebrows, and wearing a mask that covered his nose and mouth. And she also goes on to say in this Frank's denial that he had a mask on that covered his forehead, his nose, and his mouth. Conflicting statements, changing stories with her. That's why I have such a hard time believing anything that she says because of the conflicting statements, because of the changing story. That's exactly why I have a hard time believing anything uh, this girl says. Because you say that he was wearing a mask that covered his forehead, his nose, and his mouth, but you say right here that you didn't know if it was covering his nose, his mouth, below his mouth and nose. I just remember he was white, but I didn't know how he was white. I just knew he was. Okay, you're in a dimly lit area. You knew he was white. You didn't know how he was white, but you knew he was. That sounds like an oxymoron. It does to me. It sounds like an oxymoron. He was white, but I didn't know how he was white. I just knew he was. And I knew he looked at me because of the bushy eyebrows. How do you know he was looking at you? Because he was walking in the vicinity and turning towards the black sliding glass door, the back sliding glass door. And I'd like to know if there was two that night, two killers, because they found blood on the railing of the stairs going from the first floor to the second floor. Now, could someone have left out the sliding glass door and the other one left out the front door? Because we've heard this over and over again. It was an iconic home, and everyone in the neighborhood knew the key code to the front door. I mean, heck, Sigma Chi knew the key code to the front door because they were always throwing parties in there. And how do we know that? One of the noise complaints where Blaker came out and Payne came out, and they were giving Hunter Johnson and his friend a hard time because none of the roommates were home, even though the girl that answered the door looked like Bethany. If someone said that was Hunter J's girlfriend, Emily, and the cops were threatening to run him in for breaking and entering because the roommates weren't home and they were in the house during the party. And I still say to this day that the murders took place before 4 a.m. And I'm not budging off of that. But back to Dylan. This person is not a credible witness. She's not. She's not a credible witness. her changing story, her generic statement in the PCA, Ann Taylor's going to have a heyday with her if she testifies, especially on cross examination. But you have a judge who is pro law enforcement, and clearly he is pro law enforcement, who finds all this credibility in Dylan, even though she's not credible. Yeah. However, the fact DM could not identify a defendant is hardly exculpatory. That is majorly exculpatory. She could not identify Brian. She could not identify him. But yet you have this judge saying it's hardly exculpatory when it's extremely exculpatory. You have this quote unquote eyewitness to the crime who has no clue. Couldn't even pick Brian out of a photo lineup. And tells Detective Gooch on the 17th of November. Again, I believe I was also very drunk. I don't know how much of this is real. Like, I don't know if my mind was like doing whatever. I don't know any of it. Like, half this stuff, I don't know if it's a dream or if it's real. I just have no clue. And there's this statement from the judge. There is no evidence law enforcement intentionally or recklessly omitted information bearing on DM's reliability or that such omissions were material to probable cause. Everything she said, they ate up like it was a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios. And still, you have the 8-hour gap for calling 911. I mean, if she opened her door 3 times that night, second time she opened the door, she thought she heard Xana crying. Closes her door. Now, it doesn't say if she closed the door all the way. Closes the door, goes back to bed, gets up again, opens her door for the third time. After the crying, sees the quote unquote killer, 5'10" or taller, athletically built, not muscular, bushy eyebrows. He was white. I don't know how he was white, but he was. How are you going to tell he's white in a dimly lit house? Maybe even the lights were off in some areas. Like, you got to be kidding me. And this is a credible witness, Judge Hippler? Huh, Judge Hippler? This is a credible witness? Newsflash, Judge. She's not a credible witness. She's not. If she was a credible witness, she wouldn't have waited 8 hours to call 911. But instead of calling 911, when she wasn't even the one that called, she called the frats and the sororities over before calling 911. And I would like to know, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to know exactly how are you going to call in an unconscious person when clearly when clearly there's, yeah, and we've heard it was a grisly crime scene and there's blood everywhere. How are you going to call in as an unconscious person when there's blood everywhere? Clearly, walking into this grisly crime scene, oh, I think I'm going to call in as an unconscious person. But hey, look, there's blood everywhere. Like, what the crap? Hello, McFly. McFly, hello. And they called them over to check on Xana and Ethan. Why didn't they, in the midst of this 911 call for an unconscious person, and mind you, there was more than one person on the call. The phone was being passed around to multiple people, and I bet you anything Dylan and Bethany wasn't two of those multiple people. Why didn't somebody go upstairs and check on Maddie? And if it was an unconscious person and they were trying to get in Xana's room, hello, Dylan. You had two other roommates there, Kaylee and Maddie, unless you didn't know that they were no longer with us. So why call the frats over when not knowing if Xana or if Kaylee and Maddie was still alive? Why didn't you just holler up to them or go up to their rooms? This entire scenario, I don't like. There's something rotten in Denmark in my eyes. Maybe Dylan and called the friends over. Now, I'm not saying Dylan's involved in any way, but maybe the reason why Dylan called the friends over, I don't know. Let's see. Maybe to help get rid of something in the house. Because how do we know that this person, as Dylan said, they were carrying what looked like a small vacuum cleaner, which I don't know why you'd be carrying a vacuum cleaner through a crime scene. And I'm not saying it's a kill kit at all. I mean, if you look at the first charge, burglary, something was taken from that house. Possibly the D word and it ends with S. It was a burglary. Something was taken. If it wasn't taken, then something wasn't taken, then the burglary is put there because 4 people were murdered in that house. So the burglary is there for intent of homicides. But that still don't add up with Dylan's conflicting statements and the 8-hour delay and these friends coming over after Dylan called and they're all traipsing through a crime scene. Mind you, it had been 8 hours. Could you imagine the smell of blood in that house? And I've watched enough uh, true crime series. I watched, Lieutenant Joe Kenda, and even he states that blood, when it's out of the body, putrefies, and it has a unique smell. And you have Dylan, Bethany, and these other people traipsing through the house, mind you, contaminating a crime scene. They were contaminating a crime scene. But you have the distinct coppery smell of blood, but you call it in as an unconscious person. You're standing over the body of your best friend, Ethan Chapin, and you call it in as an unconscious person when you clearly see that they were no longer alive. There's just subtle things in this case, guys, that absolutely irritate me. I lose sleep over it sometimes because it's the blatant hypocrisy in this case that irritates me. It's the hypocrisy that irritates me. And especially with what Judge Hippler did. He basically said, Brian's guilty. I don't care. I'm sending this to trial. And a jury of his peers can handle him. Because he looked at Brian and the defense and said, you shouldn't have left your DNA on the knife sheath. And then he stated, DNA on the knife sheath is probable cause twice on Sundays. So think about what I said, guys. She's not a credible witness. Leave your comments down in the comment section. Let me know what you think of Dylan's credibility. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button and hit the subscribe button while you're here, and make sure you hit that bell notification and click it to all, so you can get all my videos, my rants, my deep dives, and I want you guys to have a good Friday. Oh, and also on my homepage of True Crime Unraveled, there's a link to W Energy, and it's an energy drink that gives you no jitters afterwards. And it's it comes in a tub, and each tub has pouches in it. If you want to check out W Energy, uh, click the link on my homepage, and you won't be disappointed. You always have a very good Friday, and This is True Crime Unraveled, guys. Let's keep using the common sense. Peace.